What was your scariest moment in life?
My scariest moment in life, going through surgery from my Crohn's disease. What happened was,
This was in like 2014, 2015 maybe. It was a couple days before Mother's Day. And my mom worked at a post office and she delivered mail. She was driving one day and there was a goose in the middle of the road. And for some odd reason, she decided to swerve to miss the goose, but she swerved a little too hard and like flipped her car into a field. She was hurt really, really badly. Like she had cuts all up her arms, all down her legs.
The scariest moment in my life was when my mum got sick and she had a heart attack.
it was before Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving Eve at night. I started having a terrible pain in my stomach. It was awful. I couldn't stand up. It was beyond me. The pain was just ridiculous. I had to lay down. That's the only way I could have been comfortable. And my parents were like, you need to go to the hospital. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, no, just leave me alone. Like, I want to try to sleep this off. We ended up getting dressed and I went there. They took x-rays and stuff like that. And they told me that I needed surgery immediately. So after surgery, they told me I had a ulcer in my small intestine and all the fluids from my small intestine were leaking out into my body and my appendix ruptured and I almost died from it. If I would have slept that night, I probably wouldn't be alive right now.
About 3 years ago, it was at like 1 o'clock in the morning because I worked a late shift. Didn't get out until like midnight that night. And I'm getting nervous just thinking about it again. Jesus.
Scariest moment in life would have had to been snowboarding in Banff, Alberta, cruising down the mountain as quickly as possible, catching my toe on the edge, flipping over, rolling down the hill at top speeds, wrapping around a tree till my toes touch my forehead, and wondering for about 5 seconds if I could still walk again. I kind of wiggled my toes, felt if I could feel them. I could, took about a 5-minute breather, and went snowboarding for the rest of the day.
I didn't know what was happening at the time because she couldn't really see. So I ran downstairs and I called the ambulance. But I had to keep calm because I had to show my mom that I wasn't scared, even though I was terrified. They confirmed it was a heart attack and they gave her medication and she's on medication for life now.
I was driving home from work and actually had gotten home, gotten changed, and went to go see a friend at like 1 o'clock in the morning and stopped at a red light. And when the red light went and turned green, went forward, there was this person next to me, and there's a car that actually ran the intersection, hit into the car next to me, and then hit into myself, flipping over and landing on the other side of the intersection. And if I hadn't been going any faster, it would have flipped over on top of me. And I literally basically walked almost unscathed with only a couple bruises and a chemical burn from the airbag. And it was horrifying because everyone else that was a part of the accident was like in the hospital for weeks. I ended up losing my vehicle. Like, it was completely totaled, and moved back in with my family like that night. I stayed with them because my friend didn't actually answer her phone.
One is probably when I was like really young. I was at this little resort. I watched a lot of cartoons at the time, so you know how if you ever watch a cartoon, you'll see people diving in a diving board and how that looks really cool. So I did that. I went to the deep end. This deep end's probably like 6 feet deep, which is not normally deep, but I mean, I was like a 3-foot 6-year-old. So I jumped in, all right, and I started struggling to swim. So I'm just trying to paddle up, but I'm not smart enough to call for help. So I just kind of fall down, and the more I realize it, the darker it's getting, and I just kind of see the light fade away. And at this point, I'm probably on the verge of passing out because I've been down there so long. And right before I pass out, I get lifted up by this lady, and she brings me out and start coughing up water.
So we roll up the sketchy neighborhood, but whatever, we're just getting gas. So I'm just in there playing my Game Boy, and then I hear thunk. My dad's in the front seat, and he's up and looking about. He's reaching into his bag, starting the car. So I look up, and over there, there's a group of cholos just coming, not out of the store, but they rolled up in their lowered tiny rim pickup truck, and they've jumped out. And we get in the truck, car starts, and my dad pulls a gawk out of the thing and drops it on the console, starts the car. Cholos see the car start, and they go. And you're standing up, and then you see all of them go, which is a problem most of the time. So we rip ass out of the parking lot. I'm 12, so I don't know what's happening to this point until we hear and rounds come over the car. We got out, but it's why I have problems in public spaces sometimes now. It's hard to keep track of people when there's a lot of people, and when you're 12, that stuff affects you.
It was hard to actually comprehend what the hell happened until like weeks later when everything finally settled down, because unfortunately with the whole situation with the person that was at fault, they were like on a bunch of stuff apparently and didn't have insurance, and I never actually got to see any money out of it either, so I'm still kind of struggling with that like years later. She was already asleep, unfortunately, and like 'cause she worked day shifts, so I called my parents, and my mom literally sped to come get me, make sure I was okay. It was about a 25-minute drive from my parents' house, took her less than 15 minutes. My mom was like superhero moment and came and was there to support me.
But like she was in a field, and the nearest house was like a mile away, so she had to walk to the house. And the lady that was there, she knew. And if she were laying down, in the field, her car landed a couple feet behind her, so if she were laying down, she would have been dead. She had that person call my sister, and then my sister called me and my dad. So we drove to the hospital, and we made it before the ambulance even made it there. So we saw them like taking her in and stuff, and that was just the like most scariest, like heartbreaking moment of my life, because she looked so weak, and I've never thought of my mother as a weak person. She's very strong, so like when I saw her like that, I just kind of broke down. It was really scary. That's why I'm afraid to drive. Yeah, no, she's great. Just her hand is really scarred, and she doesn't really have much feeling in there.
A long time ago, sad story and all, grandma died of cancer, but that was like back in 2004, so it's, life happens. A couple years later, grandpa died as well, and the guy had to get into the ground somehow, and in his will, he was to be buried with grandma. And I don't know where in this interpretation of his will it ended up being mine, my brother's, and like 3 of my cousins' responsibility to dig up grandma to get grandpa down there. I did one time dig up my grandma.
If it wasn't for my mom, I wouldn't be here. Yeah, not just like, oh, well, she birthed me. No, I mean literally, she's the one that told me to go to the hospital. I actually almost lost my life at 2 years old. I got lead poisoning. I was teething, and when you're teething, you like bite stuff. During the time we were living in a very cheap apartment complex, and there was lead in the paint, and I was teething on a windowsill, so the paint chips got into my bloodstream through mouth. Yeah, that also almost me. They said the levels were so high, like if I had a little more, I would have died. There's actually lead in all of us, and we eventually sued them and got money from it. It was against the law because they didn't even say that there was actual lead in the paint. There was nothing in fine print that said that there was lead in the paint. They didn't warn us, nothing. So we sue them.
It was kind of funny because the whole experience wasn't even sad. Nobody was treating it like it was a big traumatic moment, except for all these relatives that didn't really know the kind of guy grandpa was, because they're like, oh, what would dogs say? And at that time, my brother snaps a shovel in half, lifts it up as his head, and he's like, Chinese piece of throws it to the side, and my dad leans over and he says, that's what he would say. And then we took his credit card out for his steak dinner because he's dead, so...
I was at an amusement park, probably when I was, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13. There was this giant guitar ride. It was basically swinging you up in this circle pattern, all right? Probably at a max speed of, I don't know, 50, 60 miles an hour, coming down at like the full slope. I'm getting on with some friends, and as soon as we get on, the belt thing is kind of like the thing you pull over yourself. It's kind of loose, but it's okay. It's making a few crickety sounds, but I mean, that's what happens whenever, you're transporting these rides across the country. So after we're on, all right, and this thing starts flying upward at really fast speeds, I noticed that this thing has come entirely loose. Like, I mean, I can grab this thing and pull it over my head. I'm holding on to this ride for absolute dear life, alright? My heartbeat is, I don't know, what's the normal heartbeat for a person? Let's just say it's really fast. And at the end of the ride, I miraculously stayed on with the, me holding onto my chest as tight as I could with it still trying to fly off.
Yeah, that's why you gotta treat every day like it's your last. You gotta be happy about your life.
Yo, Lucidians, what is good? I appreciate you for staying till the end of this video, but I got some good news. If you want to be in my next video, then all you got to do is record yourself with your phone, kind of like this, landscape, not portrait. Send in a clip of yourself explaining your biggest life regrets to iamSoLucid@gmail.com. If you aren't comfortable showing your face, that's perfectly fine. You can just show your VR character, kind of like I'm doing right now. And as far as time goes, there's no real time limit. You just got to keep it short and to the point, and I'll take care of everything else in post. That's all I got for this video, but hopefully I'll see you in my next one. Stay dreaming, stay lucid. I'm out. Peace.